This afternoon session is dedicated to the family and community learning workshops, which have been, in my opinion, absolutely amazing and game changing for our work with families.
Yes.
It really has been. It's because we really have noticed over the time that we've been in media and teaching that a lot of media is consumed one-on-one, a one person with a device. And the idea that we can expand that model and change it is very exciting. We know there's been parents that are kind of hesitant. They really haven't been too sure how they can interact with their child if it's just them and the device or the app or a TV show. And this really shines a light on that path. So we're super excited to share it with you. Again, I hope you still have your boxes handy because a lot of the materials that you looked at with camp, some of those are going to be also used for the family and community learning workshops. But there's a lot more choices when it comes to the family and community workshop model. So let's hop right in. And of course, there's a little bit to read. So what is family and community learning? Series of workshops, hands-on learning, designed for families, children ages 3 to 8. But we encourage the whole family to come. So there might be a toddler, there might be a newborn baby, there may be a teenager. Everyone is included in this model. We introduce the exciting and digital tools that have been made from PBS. They're just fantastic to work with. And it's all about fostering that collaboration and communication amongst family members. And why are we doing this? Well, we've been hearing from teachers, and I bet a lot of you do science nights and back to school nights and things like that. Right? Shake your head at me if you like do those kinds of back to school things and science nights and yeah. This offers a whole other way to reach those families. We know that they're eager for things to do outside of the school day and how to interact with their child. So having this series meeting once a week for 4 weeks, it can change behaviors and create a new way of viewing the time you spend with your family. We really empower families to ask questions and explore and investigate, and empower their children to respond and ask their families questions too. So they actually get to know each other a little bit better throughout this process. And we really do think it's like reinventing family game night. Nobody else has really been working in this arena. So it's super exciting, especially considering we've been working around math and science concepts. So much like the camps, there's a secret sauce recipe, and this is what it looks like, step by step. First, we eat. And Hannah and Haley, you can help me out here because we've been able to get a lot of donations or things discounted. I know one of our go-to places is Publix, which you can all take advantage of. We've done the chicken platters, we've done sub rings. Those are always wildly accepted. Popular.
Yeah.
That's the word. Yes. It's like,
Yes.
I need to eat more chocolate right now because my tongue is failing.
Yeah.
And
I'm sorry.
No, go Haley. You remember. What else have we fed them?
We have done Publix a lot, though they don't really give us a discount. We just get our nonprofit status through them. The downside to Publix is they often mess up orders or they are very late, which Rashana can attest to that. In our most recent Scratch Junior Camp, I got there and they when it was supposed to be done and it wasn't even started. So that made me very late for one of the programs.
The silver lining is sometimes when they do that, they give it to us for free.
Yeah, which is nice, except for when they tell us that we get it for free and then a different manager comes out and doesn't know that the other manager told us we got it for free. So then I have to argue. But one thing that we have found out is there are a lot of businesses that will give us a complete donation of food. So here in Tallahassee, there's Sonny's Barbecue, who has given us free food for these programs. We've also had Jason's Deli
Yes.
do that as well. And I know Hannah's probably done a couple other, Tropical Smoothie is another one that's done it. Those are the main ones that I've done since I've been here, but I don't know if maybe Hannah has.
Another one
Yeah.
who is Wendy's. And
Oh.
other stations might want to check with Wendy's. People forget about them, but they will donate chili at any number. And when I did my Taste of Math night, and it did have a PBS caveat because I'm an ELC, but I did get chili donated for 150 people, and that included the crackers, the bowls, the spoons, and everything. And because Publix had messed up my cookies, I got cookies for free.
So fabulous. And it really does make a difference to have that meal together and to have families not have to worry about that meal, and they can just come in or they just join their child after school. It is a win-win. So eating. And during that eat time is when families check in. They usually make their own name tag. They grab their food and they eat and they can visit. The next section is always the explore. Sometimes that includes watching a clip or directions about an app or reading a book. Now, all of this comes back to that whole idea of technology. You know, there's still folks in the education community, especially in the communities that are working with very young children, that technology is not something they want to use with their families. They want it to be very hands-on, and it's still technology is not considered necessarily hands-on, though this can prove them wrong. In your world scope, what do you guys think are the benefits of kids using media and technology? You can write it in the chat or feel free to unmute and let's chat about it.
There's so many places for them to go. Their location is very limited.
Right. So it opens the world.
Exactly.
And especially things like Penny's virtual
Virtual
PK.
field trips.
And we use that all the time. It's so fantastic
Thank
because they
you.
really get out there with it.
Thank you.
Right. Cersei just said it's a part of life. You can't succeed without it. And that's certainly true right now.
And Janice also says the kids come in with a prior knowledge of technology, which is absolutely true. And also saying we're working towards building digital citizenship because this is a whole new world that kids or younger generations are immediately growing up with. I'm in that millennial phase where I mostly had it coming up, but I mean, I had like an MS-DOS computer when I was young, and then slowly learned it through school. But these kids already have it, and they have that immediate learning of it at a very young age that a lot of us didn't have. And older parents also definitely didn't have. So yeah, we have to teach that because that is their reality now that we didn't have coming up.
And as they get older and into upper elementary, middle, and high school, they're already finding games where they're working together and working collaboratively to solve those games and have adventures together. So the younger we can expose them to this as a learning tool, and have their families understand that, their parents and grandparents understand that, it's just a win-win all around.
And I think right now they're very hungry for it because of the pandemic. It's opened that door that technology is necessary. Right. And so they're looking for content.
And to show them how to use content as a family, this is just the perfect time to be able to use this. So on the flip side of that, though, what are some drawbacks?
It's technology.
Right. It's more screen time.
Right.
I'm going to throw out there, it's expensive.
Yeah.
And not everyone has access to it. I know like in Broward County, schools were giving out limited amount of computers, and it was kind of on a first come, first serve basis. So what happens with the parents that aren't able to come from 9 to 4 to pick up a computer?
They did
It's
revisit.
limited. Oh, my mom said they revisited, but it's still tough though.
It's there, Tom. We still haven't figured out how to get the kids.
Oh,
to
she's
develop
talking. But not
Bring your
every.
mom right over there, Sears. She can
She's
tell us.
welcome.
that. How are we gonna get those kids?
Yeah.
I
So
know,
I think
because
that's the drawback.
it's a tool that really could be used to equalize the playing field, but until all districts everywhere and those companies that are providing the internet service get on board with that and recognize that this is a necessity, we're going to have that inequality. We need to work towards that. And
Until
that
our
Gail just wrote.
policymakers recognize that education needs funded equitably.
Yes. And that includes a device and internet.
Absolutely. And
Yes.
so in the chat, we're also getting lack of parent knowledge is also
Mhm.
an issue. Had my first cell phone at 27 a long time ago. It weighed more than the diaper bag.
And
Also we've
times
got,
have changed.
yeah. Cersei also said teenagers spending their entire day with their nose in a phone instead of a book, which I'm guilty of that often. Gail says consistent access and buy-in from teachers, especially early learning providers, 100%. We've been doing early education provider workshops ourselves, and getting the buy-in from them is a big deal. And also making sure they have access to even have the buy-in in the first place.
Right.
in
And
their-
we
in their
still have some child care providers that don't even have a phone, really. They have a little flip phone that they use, so they don't even have access to like looking at mail and pictures and things like that. So still
and they
lots
don't
of
have email addresses either.
we're just calling them on the phone. And so last question, what roles can parents and caregivers do to support this world of media and technology? Kids want to hop in on that? Let's see.
I think it's really important to tie the family together, to watch those things together, to share it together, to talk about it. And that's the adults' starting point for conversations, because they have the child interested, and now just take that conversation to find out about more interests. But it's a starter.
It is. And I think it's real tricky too, because when parents when they don't have the knowledge about it, they don't even really want to deal with it, because they always want to feel like they've got a little bit more up on their children. And in this arena, they may not. So when we provide tools for them and we can sort of separate them out and give them a heads up on what it is we're going to be doing, they feel empowered and they learn about the technology along with their children, but just a little half step in front of them.
And Tasha, with that, I also think it gives a talking point, because even if it's not so much of wanting to be like the hero in the situation, it's hard to care about something you know nothing about. And I can use, for example, Chris is into Fortnite. I don't play video games like that. And so when he's like, oh, I did a snafu 22, 35, 78. And I'm just like, oh, okay. Tell your dad.
Yep.
But when I started researching like some of the events and different things, like I watched him go to an event and just trying to embed myself into what he's doing, even though I still don't care too much about it, it's not on the forefront of my mind. Being able to have those talking points where he feels like he can talk to me about it, and the energy. And I've seen, as a facilitator of Scratch Junior, I've seen parents come in and like, I don't know how to work this iPad thing. That's why we don't have them at home. But then their child gets on, like, oh, mom, you do this. And then watching their faces change as they see that their children are doing something and wanting to have those talking points. So when we send home that homework card that says, do this at home, and they come back by the end, and it's like, well, we learned this and I learned. Or even we have grandparents who come in and they learn how to do things, like even how to open and close apps on the iPad, when before they were just like, I just got my cell phone and that's it. It really just moves you to like just feel like you empowered, like you gave that power to another group of people.
Yeah,
Right.
it can be
And
life-changing.
also, I'd even expand on that and say that you're then giving that kid authority, right? You're lending Chris authority to share his knowledge and to teach you something new. And I think that's huge for kids, you know, to feel like they have something that they can contribute and even educate the adults in their lives about.
Yeah, there's a few things that came in on the chat too. Sierra, well, Janice wrote, child's interest often sparks parent interest. And as children start to involve parents, it creates generational changes on parent involvement. And Sierra wrote in, if parents are attentive to their little one's digital use, I think it can help support their child's use of technology. Maybe they can find a show or a YouTube series that they both enjoy. Absolutely. Love it. So that's leads us to this next part, because one of the things we all hear is, you know, when we're talking about media is, well, the children are just sitting there and zoning out. And that's, of course, the antithesis of what all of us know to be true, is that we want to have them watch, engage with them while they are watching, and then turn it off and go do something amazing with it that's really inspirational. And that's like, we're all those cheerleaders for making that happen. And to have parents realize that this is the recipe for making that happen through making and playing after you've engaged with that piece of technology, it's golden. So when we first started out on the road of Ready to Learn, we had a lot of conversations about makers. That whole concept of a maker space was a hot topic, and it continues to be so. I'm curious, do your communities have maker spaces? What's been your experience with that?
Our library has one, but we haven't engaged with them yet.
I think our library does too. Anyone else have schools or other spaces that have kind of popped up individually as that are maker spaces?
Anyone's like local children's museums. Obviously, they're not open right now, but art centers or children's museums in your areas.
We have a local space called the Sharing Tree. That's all recycled things that have been collected from the community. And Carly, who's the executive director, has made all kinds of spaces where kids can explore and create in that environment. So it may not be called a maker space, but that's the basic gist of it, is spaces that are dedicated to kids just being able, and adults too, to tinker. So when you all have time, what is the kind of tinkering that you do? What are some of the things that you like to make?
I like to play with sticks. And I just read a story about stones, painting stones, kindness stones. And I have to say, I really enjoyed painting them and have painted them ever since and put them around as I walk around.
Oh, that's great, Penny. I'd love for you to share some with us. You'll have to take some pictures and share them. That's awesome.
Got
My garden.
We've got a few people in the chat. So Lavinia said food, which as you can see, I have transitioned to my kitchen because I realized I needed to put something in the crock pot. So, so I'm also cooking. Anything with hot glue, Janice? Me too. We've got Cersei says food and baking, holiday crafts, used to cross stitch, but can't see anymore.
No, right? It's terrible. Right there with Cersei. I need my bifocals and a magnifying glass. Those
I've
are all
been,
wonderful.
Really super into paint by numbers lately.
That's great. Those coloring books are wonderful now too. The adult coloring books. That's excellent. Oh, card cutting.
Roshana says the cricket and painting and
Oh,
watercoloring.
Kim's.
Wonderful. Love to hear that, Kim. I as an art teacher, I commend you. Yay.
That's fantastic. So obviously we are a group full of tinkerers and creators, and we love to make stuff, and kids do too. What are some things that you see kids enjoy making? Oh,
I
go
feel
ahead.
like I'm out of touch in this, but I'm remembering like kids making bracelets a lot at the art center. It was well, I used to work at an art center in Des Moines, Iowa, and I feel like there was a fad of like making little rubber bracelets. I don't even remember what it's called, but I don't think that's in anymore.
It's still in, but now they're making actual characters. They're weaving the rubber bands together to make
Oh,
characters.
There we go.
wow. That's neat.
I'm seeing a mess. Mess, every
That's
guitar
age
making
old.
mess.
Making mud.
Puzzles. Yes, puzzles have been a big one for me right now too.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, kids love making things that they see used in the world, like recyclable bird feeders, building train tracks, creating new things out of old things.
That's all on the summer challenge list too.
And that helps, right? With it's our own maker list. We could brand it like a maker's list too. That's great.
My children are PBS Kids children, so they have been recycling boxes and everything to make sceneries and tunnels and play yards in the house. And I have to have the caveat: you can keep it for 2 weeks, and then after that, we're recycling it. It cannot stay in
Awesome.
here because I'd be full of boxes.
Exactly. And Janice just sort of summed that up as creating new things out of old things.
Yes.
And a lot of what is going to happen in all of these family and community learning workshops is just that. And then, of course, the last piece of each workshop is sharing. After they have made things and they've discussed them and have done all of this wonderful work as a family, they share with other families about their thought process and how that all worked. It's just beautiful. And that's a great time too. We connect the dots, we do the wrap up, we review what we did throughout the whole session, and then we share out what the next session is, the date, time, and the place. If you want to rummage around in your boxes, some of you have the cat in the hat. There's some materials that go along with that. And you can see here again, this is right in the booklet, that at a glance, there's the eat, there's the explore. And in this particular explore, they're reading sorted out, and the grown-ups are getting a review of what's going to happen. When they go to the play stations, there's the using the senses to make your observations about the different types of fish snacks and choosing the best way to sort them when cat gets hungry. There's families create their own sorting book using items found in nature and around the house. And then, of course, the digital game. They play Sort-a-Ma-Go-Go. And then they all come back from that and they have the share. Hannah, I think you did this one, right? Didn't you do the cat in the hat, or at least parts of it? You're muted.
Had to happen to me once, right? Yes, yeah, I did. I did this one, and I think Roshana and Christopher were in on this one too.
Yeah, we did it at Pineview.
Mm-hmm.
So if anyone
Yeah,
has
it was super fun.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say it was really fun. I liked the one about balls in particular.
Yes.
They have a
The ballorometer.
balometer. Yeah. They use the slow motion function on your smartphone to slow down different types of balls bouncing and count how bouncy they are. And that's fun. They love seeing that.
To
Really
actually see
great.
that the ball was bouncing even when you thought it was still.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. So I'm not an expert on any of these in particular, because as a pilot station, we piloted it. We maybe did it 1 or 2 times, and then we moved on to the next one. And there's 6 different choices to choose from. So in some of these we did 2 or 3 years ago. So we're having to be like, oh, what do we do for that one? So thanks, guys. Thanks for letting me put you on the spot with that. And then Scratch Junior. Now, we've used components of the Scratch Junior one probably more than any of them because it's so versatile. Like I said, we have 10 iPads, and because you could take just an evening of the Scratch Junior or of the camp and turn that into an after-school activity, it just made it fantastic. You can see, again, eat, explore, And then making, and obviously on this, they're actually making their story. The episode that we used for one of them is the Peg gets stuck in the tree and they have to solve how to get, I guess Cat gets stuck in the tree and then Peg has to figure out how to get her out. And it just gets worse from there, but creating a new ending for it. So they design that on the iPad. And it is remarkable how quickly they pick it up, and families too. And they can put themselves in there and do voiceovers. And it just is amazing and empowering. Here's more Fun Scratch Junior photos. You can just see how intense all these families are working together. And it's not all just done on the iPad either. There are cards. I think those of you that receive boxes, you have the Simon Says cards that helps review how everything works together. So when they finally do have the iPads, they've got a little bit of experience on how all these little pieces build on one another. The next family and community learning is Play and Learn Science, which is another fabulous app. If you have not downloaded this and played with it and shared it with all the people that you know that have kiddos under the age of 4, you need to do it. It really is fantastic. And they add new things to it too quite often. So again, eat, explore. In this explore, they're reading Oscar and the Cricket. Set up the centers, the play. The families make their own tube ramp structures using recyclable objects. The Digital Play Center features the Play and Learn Science app. And the Investigation Center is the impact of placing different textured materials on the ramps to see how those materials influence whatever little vehicle you're rolling. And then the Literacy Center. And it's all free. You just need your smartphone too, which is a great thing too, because the families more often than not do have a smartphone. They can upload this for free so they can continue using it well beyond family and community learning workshops to create more adventures and family game nights centered around PBS content.
I wanted to add in too that the nice thing about the Play and Learn Science one is each of them can be pulled out. So it's a series of activities that could be done over a series of weeks. But these are nice because you can pull just one out and do a one-off program. So this ramp and roll workshop, we, myself and one of our other colleagues who doesn't work with WFSU anymore, right before quarantine, we did this at a science night at one of our local elementary schools. And they had coordinated eating already, so that was kind of built in. And then we had the families were already planned to rotate around, and it worked that we could actually adjust this per age group. So this is more so for the younger age group, kindergarten through 2nd grade. Is that what this one is? But we had kids all the way up through like 5th and 6th grade and full families that were doing this activity. And it still was really successful and was easily adaptable to that environment as well. And we still managed to hit like 60 or 70 families with this program and all of our content with that.
And the supports on this one are particularly adorable. I mean, they have these Dot, Del, and D paper dolls that you can sort of dress up for different weather conditions, and they have a whole PBS Kidsified weather map and a thermometer craft. So lots of really sweet designs and materials to go along with this.
Our next one is a Ready, Jet, Go camp. I mean, not camp, family and community learning workshop. So you saw some of the activities from the camp, and those are done again with families. So I don't know if I have the whole thing where it's spread out for the eat. No, I went right into rough. But it has the same sort of thing. You eat, you explore, play, you make, and then share. we've done the rough one a lot because rough is just, it's amazingly hands-on, as you saw from the video and what Hannah shared in the camp session. And it's exploring those same things with their families. And it's just been adorable and great fun. A little messy, all good.
One thing to point out that makes these really nice, especially the ones that have the camp component, like Ref Refman and Ready Jet Go, is that as a facilitator, once you learn one or the other, it's a pretty easy lift to convert that into either a camp or a family community learning workshop, because a lot of the curriculum carries over and stays the same. It's just sort of fine-tuning your delivery and obviously incorporating, you know, it's a different time schedule and everything. But in terms of the actual activities and the materials and the curriculum, it all pretty much remains the same between both. So.
And it's nice too, because you can see when we're doing a family community learning workshop, we try to keep it to no more than 10 families, which of course, if you have a really big family, then you could still end up with 40 or 50 people, which is a pretty good sized group, but they're still relatively small. And the same thing with the camp. Most of the time, ideally, we have camps that have less than 20 kids in them. So when we have this mix of things to offer and pull from, and we can use them at science nights or in a classroom or an after school program, it expands our ability to reach more children with the same content. And I think that's really important. So we went really quickly through 5 of those programs so that you could see the wide array of subjects and characters that we have to use in this way. But we're going to jump in deeply into the Molly of Denali because we actually had the opportunity to do this virtually. So that's what we're going to show you. I think, yes, this link. So those of you that have your boxes, you should have the whole set of placemats, the Molly and Me Museum Planner, and the very awesome pen that when I was in elementary school, we would have given a tooth for these because they were very special. So let's hop in and see our first one.
Take another picture. Take another picture.
Common 5-line scheme.
More than an hour. I think you might have got it, babe. Oh, I got it. You see it on the TV? That's the cell.
So just a really quick little overview of what we were able to do at the Fred George Center. Fantastic partnership, as you all saw from Misty's presentation, to be able to have that center and that space and have the natural world right outside that we could explore with was perfect. So then we had to take it, well, I'm getting ahead of myself. So we make a huge shift with Molly because it's all about informational text. And this is the first time that any of us had really jumped into exploring informational text with families, with children. And using the Molly program makes this just so easy and wonderful. We could do a whole workshop about informational text. And if that's something that you all would like to do with us, let us know because we can arrange that. I'm just going to give you a minute to read what's on the screen here. Give me a thumbs up when you're ready. Okay, so here's the chart. And it's interesting too, because we spend a lot of time in talking about informational text of what is not informational text, because it can be kind of a difficult concept to wrap your head around. Obviously, we've got informative and explanatory, and using books, reference materials, field guides, etc. There's how-tos, following recipes, that kind of thing. Biographical, that's what leads us to the bio sketch that we work on in one of the weeks of Molly of Denali. Nonfiction narratives. Again, that helps us not only with our map section, but also with the bio sketch. And then just functional information. We were very surprised and could absolutely see why PBS Kids decided to create something that's so rich and focused on informational text, because our children today just aren't interacting with the same sorts of informational text that we did even 10 years ago. Give me an example of informational text that you grew up with that you don't think kids have access to today.
Thesaurus.
Excellent. You're right, Roshana. They don't have that book where they can start looking through, because I don't know about you, maybe it's just the word nerd in me, but when I had a thesaurus, it made me look up a whole bunch of other words, not just the one I was looking for. That's a great one.
Yeah, but don't they just do that same thing online?
But it's for a specific word, right? I mean, it gives them some other choices, but you're not holding a book full of different word choices that you can explore in the same way.
Nor do they know how to use the thesaurus or the encyclopedia, which brings into a whole other conversation of why do we still assess them on how to use those components of a book when they don't have them to apply that skill? Because they are still tested on informational elements. However, they are given them, and they're not given them on a regular basis. They might be given an excerpt of a table of contents, but they're not used to using it. And I just feel like, because again, we do watch, our TVs are on PBS Kids 365 all the time, because I have 3 kids, and Molly and Denali does offer that opportunity to see how to use it, even if it's digital, but why we use it this way, and they go into great detail on how to use it.
I'll throw another one out there, a phone book. As a child, I was looking at the yellow pages. Go ahead, Cersei. What was that?
Maps. Oh.
How many family trips where you had your parents, with this thing blocking their view and they're hollering at each other, trying to figure everything out.
Well, and I just used to look at maps just to, for something to look at, like an atlas or a map. And I'm able to go into, I was able to go into, we were in Scotland, and we didn't know where the hostel was. And because I spent so much time looking at maps and the way cities are laid out, not just about street names or where it goes, but kind of like where a mall might be, like by a freeway, where a church might be. I was able to get us to the hostel without knowing where the hell we were going, because I just
impressive.
spent time looking at maps. And my daughter, we're having a hard time teaching her to drive because she doesn't know where she's going.
Or even with pacing, because I know in elementary, we learned about navigation in the woods, not night land nav for like hunting, or just being out in the woods, knowing your pace and how to measure how far you had to go over amount of time. I remember doing that in elementary school, and like if your cell phone were to die and you didn't have internet, the power went out because it was raining, would you know how far away from something you were?
It's true. Having this technology is great, but we can't and we shouldn't be forgetting about the ways that we did get information traditionally, and that it's still important and relevant to their lives today. So to have this fun kids program that's taking all of that into consideration and putting it in the hands of families, once you jump into it and try it, I think you're going to just love it like we have. Haley, do you want to talk about this slide?
Yes, I can. Sorry, I was putting stuff on the pin board. So as we're talking, I'm adding all of the resources to these things on PBS Learning Media so they can easily be found. Yeah, so we had a Molly of Denali Family and Community Learning Workshop planned with Leon County Schools before the pandemic hit. This was the very first thing that Tasha said, you know what, we're just going to try it virtually, because this was pretty much the first thing on our docket upcoming after we knew we'd be working from home. So things that we had to think of before we did this, again, we had to coordinate with Leon County Schools, make sure that we had permission to do this virtually and to still receive some funding for things like postage because we thought we were going to mail things to people, and also just getting our materials around, and for backing up facilitator pay and such, which really ended up just being me and Tasha and a little bit of Andrea. So, and again, they also helped us recruit families. So we created a flyer for it. We created sign-up forms. We had to collect addresses, and again, let families know that we weren't going to send them any junk mail or anything. We were only going to use it to bring them the materials. And then additionally for this, we created a private Facebook group for families to interact with each other on. So we were hoping this would be an extra level of creating that engagement between families, because the Molly of Denali workshop is really personal. It's all about family connections, family traditions, and sharing that with each other. So we knew that that was going to be a challenge, a hurdle that we had to get over in order to keep it as connected as we possibly could. And then we packed and delivered materials to each home. I say we, and that was Tasha. She just went in.
We only had 10 families, so it wasn't so awful.
Yes. And then we had lots of pre-workshop communication with those families via email before it started.
So let's hop in. So we're going to explore the very first day, and it's animal investigation. So the agenda was dinner at home. So we all talked about what did everyone eat. We did the Alaskan Native style introductions that we just learned about from Misty, explained the different steps of how the family and community learning workshops work, that our end result was going to be this mini museum, that each night focused on one particular Native value, and this night was live carefully, your actions have consequences. We watched the episode of Suki's Bone, and then I had created a research file folder virtually. The other things that they were going to do is have a field guide that's available for Molly of Denali, make their animal sculpture. They could make a spotting scope also, and then play the digital game, and then share whatever they had created on our Facebook group page. So this is what we started with, the Native introductions. And this is something too, even when we were helping construct this with PBS and CPB, that the idea that we never want to exclude anyone, and we have to recognize that families are made up of all different kinds of people and animals and friends. So we expanded this so that the Native introductions could include really anybody that you felt comfortable as including in your circle. Of course, we based this on Molly. We shared who's important to Molly and who's in her family, which includes her grandfather and her parents, her friends, and Suki. We review all of the Native values. And then we watch the Suki's Bone episode. If you haven't seen it, you really should. It is on PBS Learning Media. All of these stories are amazing. Here, raise your hand or give me a thumbs up or something if you've watched an episode of Molly of Denali. Oh, good, good. I think everybody has. That's awesome. And after we watched, after we watch the episode together, we pull out our museum planner and our placemat, and we explore them together. And the first thing we look at and talk about is, and you have this too in your museum planner, is the OWL placard. So we talk about visiting museums, what the role of informational text plays. And we really don't talk about informational text and say that with these children. That's not the important piece. The important piece is that they're interacting with factual information and where they can find it and how they can interact with it and even create it themselves. So I'm gonna, hopefully this will work. I'm gonna hop in and show you the Facebook group page. I really hope, can you see it changing? Is it going to Facebook?
Yep.
Oh, good.
We can see it.
Yes, yay. Because this, I had no idea that we could do this before we started the Molly Denali. And I have to say it like open whole new world, because you can put your documents in here and you can split everything up by topics in this neat little popular topics post. So all of this was up for each week, like right before the week. So I'm going to pull up session 1. And we had 9 documents, and this is private. So it's only people that have that specific address can get into it and join it. Because we do have a lot of families worried about security, and even Leon County Schools was worried about that as well, as they should be.
And if you're wondering if private is like necessary, it really is, because I had made it open so people could search for it, and then we had people who were not even in this country requesting to be in the group. And somebody even snuck in and like posted something. It wasn't that bad, but it was just weird, so had to delete that and make it private again.
Exactly. So you can see, you'll learn more about the museum and the pieces that the children made. But here we have Palmer's turtle, and Joseph made a pill bug, and that's his placard that he's telling us about it. And you can see too, so we posted the whole session, so families had the PowerPoint, the directions for other activities that they could use, as well as, let me see where I put that folder. Well, let me back out and go back to the PowerPoint, because I think I put that link on the other side. Well, I didn't, but.
Which one are you looking for?
The files link. So all of the links that you see where my cursor is, these files.
It'd be back in there in the Facebook if you wanted to look at that.
Oh, let me go back in then. Was it great?
The left-hand side, on the bar to the left, files. There's members, photos, files. You just had your mouse on it.
Oh, thank you. There it is. Yay. So we can keep all of our files on here, which was just fantastic. Let me find the one. I think that might be one of them. This is for one of the different workshops, but I just want to pull it up so you can see what I'm talking about. Oh, and it's going to open up over here. Can you see the Exploring Our Community folder? Did that show up?
Yes.
Okay. So if I click on this folder, it's going to take us to PBS Learning Media. And in there, I had pulled all kinds of resources. This one's about maps that are right there in PBS Learning Media. So they have places to explore digitally. So at home, the libraries were closed at that point, so there were limited options, but this gave them lots of different places to look and learn and explore about maps or animals or whatever. So that worked out.
Again, I'm going to put these up on that pin board so you can access that folder of our curated resources on PBS Learning Media.
Okay, let me cross out of that. Okay. So that worked really well. Now, assignment for you all, because what we did is families had to figure out what native Florida animal they wanted to explore and write about and share. So I have a sneaking suspicion that almost all of you have something that's a Florida native animal, or wherever you are, if you're in DC or Michigan or wherever, that there's something that is a critter that you can share. This is one of my favorite toys. He is a squirrel. And we have squirrels here in Florida, so that could be something that I have here right on my desk. So if you guys will take just a quick minute, it can be a photograph, it can be a refrigerator magnet, it could be on a t-shirt. Anything that has an animal on it that's native to the United States. Oh, Penny's got something right away. That's awesome. Oh, she's got 2 birds. That's great. Let's see, who else has an animal?
They decorate my desk.
I know, I do too. I have to have toys and things around.
I have my Eco Citizen WFSU shirt with, I believe that's a monarch butterfly on the
It is. That's great.
logo.
Hannah, I almost grabbed my glass, but I didn't know if that was appropriate.
You can show us your glass.
Okay.
No, it doesn't count.
And Haley's got her cat that is now a Florida kitty.
Yes, this is my cat that I made in clay. But yes, now she's a Florida cat. She's around here somewhere. But this is her in clay.
And
I have my fish glass.
oh, that's a great fish glass, Gail. I love it. And loving you, it's a strawberry weevil.
Fruit weevil.
Wow, that's fancy.
I have the
I think I
same
get that one.
thing as Hannah, but it's on my glass.
Oh, yes. I know that was great. Oh, Cersei's got, is that a squirrel or an owl? It's a squirrel. That's excellent. See, you all have it. And you could research that animal, and that could be what was your museum artifact. How many of you?
I just wanted to jump in here real quick. Janice shared that from UCF, there is a virtual arboretum on PBS Learning Media, and she shared that link in the chat.
Ooh, I did not know that. That's great. Thank you for sharing that, Janice. Another fantastic app that you all need to know about is the iNaturalist app. And it's something that we share with all of our families. If you are not familiar with it, it's free. It can be used internationally. And you take a picture of a plant or a bird or an insect or a fish, anything in the natural world, and it will, as long as you give it a little information, like you say, it's a yellow flower and it's got thorns, then scientists or other naturalists will look at it and help you identify it. And if it's a wonderful specimen, it can be considered research grade and help with all different kinds of environmental projects. So that's an exciting thing unto itself, because you can be a citizen scientist. If you don't want to worry about all that and you just want an identification, there's a little, like the Little Sister Seek app that's part of that whole iNaturalist family, where it just identifies for what you share your photo of. There's nothing else to identify you or where you are. But these are fantastic tools that we love to share with families, because it just opens their world no matter where they go. And they're like, I wonder what that is. They just have to snap a picture. And more often than not, they're going to get an answer. So thanks everyone for sharing your critters with us. So families then research their animal. We love it when they have a wide variety of things, trail guides, nature guides, of course, anything they can find on Google search or whatever, books and stuff about their animal, and they answer these questions, and then they create a placard. We did include the self-hardening modeling clay that you can see the little critters that, these are actually made when we were doing our workshop at PBS about Molly of Denali, and we had this wonderful clay. Lavinia probably remembers all this, and they were going to toss them away, and I saved them. So this is a little turkey, And we have a manatee. And there's a spider. And it's a lot of fun. So we included this type of clay in the kits for the children to have at home with their families. The spotting scope was a take-home activity. So after we finished with this session, they had this worksheet and they could make them and share them later. And then we play the fish camp game. If you haven't played
Fish camp.
If you haven't played any of the Molly Denali
Hey everyone,
games,
my dad taught me how to fish for food. Now I'm fishing with Trini and her dad, and I have a book to help us.
wonderful informational.
Which way should we go for a fishing adventure?
Let's pick 2.
Let's catch some salmon to feed the sled dogs. Here's a book we can use. It's called Alaskan Fishing. We need a part of our fish wheel to catch all the fish. Tap the book to open it. Hi, I'm here to help you while you play. Try tapping on me right now. Alaskan Fishing by Gil Ness. We'll check the table of contents to see the different parts of the book. What part of the book will help us find out about fish wheels? Contents. Parts of a fishing rod. Page 1. Saving fish for winter. Page 4. Parts of a fish wheel. Page 6. What part of the book will help us find out about fish wheels? Well done! You used the table of contents to choose the page about fish wheels. Let's read the book to help us choose the part of the fish wheel that will catch all the fish. Parts of a fish wheel. Fish wheels are a tradition.
So we'll go ahead and exit that, but you can see how incredibly rich these games are with informational text. So when you're using these, make sure that there is an adult or an older sibling that can read, because the little ones will need help being able to play because they have to have that access to somebody that can be the reader. All of these games are great.
Tasha, I just want to share something with you. We did a workshop with Molly and this interactive with this game in particular, which I so love. So we created this little book. I just used it for a workshop. And it had like the pieces at the last page was something like this that you can cut out. These are all the informational text parts you could actually glue into the book as the kids were reading it. And then at the end, they could make their own little like their own salmon life cycle chart. And
That's
then with this,
awesome.
Yeah, with this one, you can cut out, fold it in half, and make a hole. And then we used like a popsicle stick, and the kids, they slid it through the bottom with a pipe cleaner, and they actually put the hook. So they had to choose the right hook, and then actually you had to make the hook to model it. It was so fun.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
Can you share that with us?
Yeah, I have the PowerPoint. I have the teacher one, which is the big page, and then I have the small one for the kids, so you could do it, but I'll send it to you digitally.
That's excellent.
I'll put it on here. Let me see if I have it. Not off to send it to you, and you can share it.
Another thing that we did to sort of bring this to life is we kind of went overboard and we took almost every freshwater fish species that's native to a Florida lake or a river here in North Florida, and we actually made the fish and we laminated them and we labeled them on the back, and we had the little fishing poles with the magnets. We created a stream out of tulle, so different colored tulle that made our little stream, and the kids fished out their fish, and then they had to write down what fish they caught, and they even had to measure it to see if it was legal, if they could keep it, or if it was catch and release. So there's so many innovative ways to bring this whole experience of fishing and outdoors life and learning about critters across disciplines to life. It's just so wonderful, and that's just one example. That's just Fish Camp. So we share our animal artifact and the placard on our Facebook group. And eventually we'll turn that into something even bigger. We have recently discovered the Smithsonian has an interactive space that's virtual that we can store our museums. So that's probably what we'll do. And then we can send those families the independent link for that. So it, again, is very private, but that's where we're headed. And we'll share more about that as we discover it. Another fun thing we did, this wasn't done in the virtual camp, but we did a pen pal exchange with actual Alaskan families. So we sent them Tallahassee postcards, and then Stephanie, who's over at the Alaska station, gave those to families, and they returned to us Alaskan postcards. So that was just another really neat way to interact with folks from Alaska and learn more about their culture and their environment. So we wrap it up, and on this one, the next session was all about maps and exploring our community. And actually, that's Roshana's little one right there staring at the map. And I have to share this. This was, we grabbed it from Alaska Public Media. Stephanie just blew us out of the water with how she created her family's museums. And they made this amazing video that I want to share. So beautiful. So it's our lessons learned part. Haley, do you want to take this one on? Thanks.
Again, things that we learned, noting our after our first virtual family and community learning workshop, we found that families were just as enthusiastic to share and discuss despite it being a virtual platform, despite that they couldn't see each other in person and sit across from another family at the other table. So the content really did easily translate into the virtual platform. We really didn't have to edit much of it or change it or really go through it and think, like just like an Odd Squad camp, we had to go through and really go, this one's just, it's not going to work. Whereas Molly of Denali, it was just like, yeah, we'll put it on a slide. We can put that on a slide. We can talk about it easily. It was great. We did find that families dwindled after the first session. We actually even had some families who didn't join it at all, even though we had sent the materials and emailed them. I think we had 8 officially sign up. And then by the end, we only had 4 remaining, one of which was actually just the little girl. Her mom was just kind of hovering around, but didn't quite grasp that it was a family program that she was to sit with her daughter and participate with. But the other families, definitely they were right there. They were in the chat talking to each other back and forth and encouraging each other. It was kind of really fun. And so you could kind of tell, like, maybe a parent was commenting for the kid, but would be addressing another child in a different family, like, wow, that's so cool, thank you for sharing that. And it was really sweet to see that still happening on the virtual platform. One of the issues we found with the Facebook group is that just not all people even have a Facebook account, because some people just don't want to be on social media. And in this group, we did have one family that did not have Facebook at all. And that was, originally we were talking about making that be our main way of sharing all the documents that we were using, and wanting that to be our main means of communication outside of the live workshop, the live day of. But because we didn't have that family member in there, we doubled up. So we would put it on the Facebook group, and then we also emailed everything to all of the participants as well. And we did find that they didn't quite use the Facebook group as we really wanted them to, and we're still going to investigate that in future things and see how we could get it to maybe work better, because in theory it's a great idea, because part of the Molly of Denali Family Community Learning Workshop is at the very end. They have a museum, and they each have their own little exhibit with all of the things they created over the 4 days of the workshop. So we were trying to figure out how could we do that virtually. So we figured we'd do that some way on Facebook, that they'd be keeping all their content up there, and it'd be this kind of virtual digital museum. However, people weren't quite using it like that. They were more so taking photos and emailing them to me, and then I would save them and put them on the Facebook group. So we'll figure it out eventually. Another thing, again, to note is that 2 people are absolutely necessary for any of these virtual programs. Somebody running the front, somebody running the back. So Tasha was running the front end, controlling the PowerPoint and talking people through the slides. I basically sat like this the whole time because it was my first time seeing kids in a long time. And I just sat there like this, smiling at all the kids and talking to them in the chat, and just letting Tasha know when there were questions or issues with audio or something. So we would give this program a 5 out of 5 virtual rating. It's very easily translatable into that virtual setting. I hope that we get to do this one again virtually, because I think it was really successful.
Yeah, the other thing too is by the time we got to the final session, the children were reading off the slides. So we didn't even have to do that part anymore, that we just were like taking turns with the children that we had. And that made my heart so happy that they were interacting to that level with it.
And they were like raising their hand, being like, I want to read it. I want to read it. And, in the chat, like, I love this episode of Molly of Denali. I've seen this one before. Or, I don't know. They were just like, they were so about Molly of Denali. It was very exciting.
Very passionate.
All about it, and that they wanted to interact with each other and with the slides. Despite it being a virtual platform, they still were acknowledging it. They didn't really lose attention. It was only an hour long each time, but they didn't really lose their attention span or anything like that. So
the other lovely thing that happened is, as the children were reading, when they got to difficult words, they had their parent right there. So I hadn't seen that happen in a very long time, to have a parent, helping that child going to the parent to help. And it just was a natural thing because they were all together, and it's family and community learning, and it was perfect. I will have to say, with the 8 families that signed up, we did do this. We started the first one, I think the last week in April, and then continued into May. So it did get kind of crazy. I think families were starting to feel like they had assignments, and, things were, that ball was rolling down the virtual hill as far as other responsibilities they had. And I think some of them felt overwhelmed. But they liked it so much, they wanted us to do camps this summer. So that was great. So in a nutshell, all of these family and community learning workshops are about collaborating, all of these great action words, all together as a community of families.